Hello, my name is Joy, and I am the dietitian that will be leading you on a tour of the supermarket and guiding you towards healthier choices. The guidelines I'm going to give you apply to the general public. If certain dietary restrictions have been set in place for you by your doctor and dietitian, follow that advice. For example, if you are on blood thinners, you would not want to overdo the green vegetables. As a diabetes educator, I've often heard many say that they wish there were diabetes-only supermarkets, so we created this tour to show that such a place is not necessary. There are plenty of choices for you at your supermarket. The key to having good blood glucose control involves eating timely meals and snacks and eating a healthy and balanced diet. If you haven't already, I'd highly recommend attending a diabetes education program for more detail on diet and self-care. I will not be covering the details of your diet as this tour focuses solely on how to make healthy choices in the supermarket. At the Diabetes Education Program, you also receive education from a nurse educator, registered dietitian, and a stress management counselor. For more information, call the Center for Diabetes Education at Foothill Presbyterian Hospital. The number is area code 626-857-3477, or on the web at cvhpdiabetes.org. Now I'd like to give you some supermarket shopping tips. Number 1, never shop on an empty stomach. Most likely your senses will tell you to grab extras that involve extra calories, carbohydrates, fats, and little nutrition. Take some time to plan out your meals and snacks for the week. Take inventory of what you've already got, and then create your shopping list. Choose fresh foods or foods closest to nature. For example, choose brown rice, which is the grain still intact, as opposed to white rice. Avoid going down aisles not needed for your grocery list, especially the infamous chips and sweets aisles. When picking produce, think color and variety. Think high fiber when choosing a side dish. For example, choose whole wheat couscous, barley, quinoa, cooked beans, or 100% whole wheat bread. Choose lean protein like reduced fat cheese, skinless poultry, lean ground beef, or tofu. Go with monounsaturated fats more often, like extra virgin olive oil, canola oil, peanut oil, or avocados, but keep the portions small. If you are visiting the grocery store more than twice weekly, consider taking a little more time to plan out your meals and snacks. Finally, let the food label be your guide. It is the table of contents of the purchase you are making and the food you are planning on eating. It is important to know what to look for since some foods may be low in one item but higher in another. For example, you may pick up a food item that is listed as low in carbs but high in fat. So it is important to know how to evaluate your food items. On that note, let me guide you towards understanding the food label. Let's start navigating through the food guide label. The first thing you want to look at when reading the food label is the serving size. It is the amount that the nutrition information is describing. For example, if the serving size is half a cup, and the calories listed reads 90 calories, then half a cup of that item is 90 calories. If you eat a cup of the item, you are then eating 180 calories. Calories. As was mentioned before, the calories listed are the calories per serving of the item. Generally, snacks should range from around 100 to 250 calories, and meals should range from 300 to 600 calories depending on your need. Calories from fat. This is the total calories provided from all the fat sources in one serving. it is best to choose foods with no more than 30% calories from fat. This is found by dividing calories from fat over calories. Total fat. This number tells how much total fat is in a serving size of food and is measured in grams. According to the diabetes exchange lists, a serving of fat is equal to 5 grams of fat. For example, consuming a serving of food that contains 10 grams of fat would be considered 2 servings of fat. Saturated fat. This is a part of the total fat found in food. It is listed separately because it is the kind of fat that raises blood cholesterol and clogs our arteries. It should be limited as much as possible in our diets. I suggest trying to pick foods with no more than 2 grams of saturated fat per serving, as much as possible. Trans fat. This refers to a man-made fat which can be found in the ingredients listing as partially hydrogenated oil. It should be avoided because it increases the risk for heart disease and can lower your good cholesterol. The food package may state that the food has 0 grams of trans fat, but it does not mean that the food is free of it. Legally, companies can label a food as having 0 grams of trans fat as long as there is less than 0.5 grams of trans fat per serving. It is important that you scan the ingredients list for hydrogenated oils if you are trying to avoid trans fat altogether. Trans fats are found in cookies, candies, microwave popcorn, packaged foods, peanut butter, and margarine. Cholesterol. This is listed in milligrams. It is recommended that we not exceed 300 milligrams of cholesterol daily. Sources of cholesterol include, but are not limited to, shrimp, butter, high-fat dairy products, meats, and eggs. Sodium. Sodium is described in milligrams. Our daily consumption of sodium should not exceed 2,400 milligrams per day. That's what's found in just a teaspoon of salt. High blood pressure may be worsened by eating too much salt, so keep an eye on sodium levels and how often you use your salt shaker. Sources of sodium include, but are not limited to, pickled foods, lunch meats, processed meats, salted nuts and pretzels, sauces, canned foods, restaurant foods, and frozen food. Total carbohydrate. This includes the grams of all the sugar and starch found in the food. It also includes the dietary fiber as well as sugar alcohol, both of which are types of carbohydrates. According to the diabetes exchange lists, 1 serving of carbohydrate is 15 grams. If your diet plan allows for 2 carbohydrate choices per meal, that would equal 30 grams of carbohydrate. If your dietitian recommended that you have 1 carbohydrate choice for a snack, that would involve 15 grams of carbohydrate. Dietary fiber. The more fiber, the better. Fiber aids in digestion, helps lower cholesterol, and is important in weight management. Our bodies respond better to carbohydrate foods that contain fiber because blood sugars don't rise as quickly after they're eaten. If a food contains 5 grams of fiber or more, you can subtract half of that number from the total carbohydrates listed. For example, if a food has 8 grams of fiber per serving and the total carbohydrates are 24 grams, you can subtract 4 grams from 24 grams to result in a net total of 20 grams of carbohydrate. Sugar. This value is the total grams of simple sugar per serving, which is part of the total carbohydrates listed. For example, the 2 or 3 grams of sugar listed for a slice of bread is from the sugar, molasses, or other sugar syrups that were added to the bread. Remember that every 4 grams of sugar is equal to 1 teaspoon of sugar. So if a product has 40 grams of sugar, that's equal to consuming 10 teaspoons of table sugar. Sugar alcohols. Sugar alcohols or polyols have a lesser effect on our blood sugars and lower calorie content than simple sugar. In the ingredients listing, you may see the name or names sorbitol, mannitol, or xylitol, all of which are sugar alcohols. Contrary to what you may think, they don't actually contain alcohol. They are just named that way because of their chemical structure. This item is listed in grams. Use the same rule at figuring the total carbohydrates of a food that you used with fiber. For example, if the sugar alcohols which are listed are higher than 5 grams per serving, you can divide that number by 2 and subtract it from total carbohydrates. For example, if a sugar-free item is listed as having 24 grams of sugar alcohol per serving and 30 grams of total carbohydrate per serving, you can subtract 12 grams of sugar alcohol from 30, which results in a total of 18 grams of net carbohydrate. Though sugar alcohols are known not to raise blood sugars, it is wise to eat items with them in small amounts, as eating too much of this sweetener can cause bloating, gas, or diarrhea. Protein. Protein is listed in grams. This lists the grams of protein per serving. According to the Diabetes Exchange lists, a serving of protein equals 7 grams of protein. This is the amount to aim for when you eat a snack and is the amount of protein found in 1 ounce of meat, poultry, fish, cheese, or in 1 egg. The 5 and 20 rule. On the far right side of the label, you'll see percentages. Instead of using them as they were intended, I want to teach you something called the 5 and 20 rule. If you see something listed as 5% or less, I want you to consider it low in that item. If you see an item listed as 20% or higher, it means that it is high in that item. If the percentage is 15% or right in the middle, it means that it has a moderate amount of that nutrient present. So if you were told to increase your vitamin C and were looking at a label that listed vitamin C with 2% as its percentage, you would not want to use that item to get your vitamin C. The ingredients listing. On the food package, you will find the ingredients listing. Since ingredients are listed according to weight, you will find the most prominent ingredient listed first. I like to use this list to find foods with sugar as the most prominent ingredient and to see whether I am purchasing a whole grain. If you pick up an item and find that sucrose is the first ingredient, consider purchasing another brand. A general rule of thumb is to pick a food where sugar is beyond the third ingredient. I like to teach my clients to use that to look for finding sugar in their food as opposed to using the sugar listed in grams as their indicator. Remember that sugar can be found in many ways. Some popular names include sucrose, fructose, honey, molasses, cane juice, fruit concentrate, corn syrup, and high fructose corn syrup. With salad dressings and sauces, check out the ingredients listing for any hidden sugars or starches. Try to pick ones where sugar is past the third ingredient. Look out for light or fat-free dressings containing more sugar or carbs, and for carb-smart dressings containing high amounts of fat. If you prefer regular dressing, go with those that are clearer like Italian or balsamic vinaigrette, and use the creamy ones like ranch, blue cheese, Caesar, and Thousand Island less often. Also, use no more than a tablespoon or at most 2 tablespoons.